Sellers are desperately trying to get rid of their inventory. For sale signs are absolutely everywhere across the U.S. housing market, folks. One house after the other
are sitting vacant, empty, unsold as inventory across the U.S. housing market skyrockets in a record fashion. Check this out, everyone. Data from Realtor.com shows that in July 2022, America added a record 130,000 homes to the unsold inventory stockpile in the U.S. housing market, which means that not only are homes getting cheaper today, they're going to continue to get cheaper into the future, particularly in certain cities across America, everyone, where this inventory growth is absolutely flabbergasting, particularly in a city like Nashville, Tennessee, which has grown its inventory by over 120% year over year. 1 year ago in Nashville, there was 2,400 homes for sale. Today, there's over 5,200 homes for sale. But as fast as the housing market is crashing in Nashville right now, it's crashing even faster in Las Vegas, our number 9 metro area that has the biggest pileup of homes for sale. Because just take a look at this month-over-month inventory growth chart in Vegas. You can see that in July, nearly 2,600 homes were added to the unsold inventory stockpile in Vegas. This is by far a record high. We've never seen anything like this. And this is already showing up in declining prices in Vegas, because according to Realtor.com, get this everyone, over 67% of the listings in Vegas currently have a price cut. That's right, over 2/3 of sellers are saying, wait a minute, I came to the market too high on my list, I gotta cut that list price, and often I gotta cut that list price multiple times. And if you're a would-be home buyer out there, if you're looking for prices to decline so you can get into the market, this data should be very exciting for you, because it's showing that this housing crash is accelerating at warp speed. This is happening even faster than I thought it would. And the big surprise to many in the housing industry is that despite the increased inventory and the price cuts, we are not seeing buyers come back into the market. For instance, Fannie Mae just released their monthly housing survey, where 3/4 of all Americans, 75% of Americans, said that now is a bad time to buy a home, compared to a long-term average of only 30% saying it's a bad time to buy. And so this is the crazy thing, everyone. It's that skyrocketing inventory and declining home prices, rather than bringing buyers back into the market, it's pushing buyers out of the market. Because I know a lot of you are looking right now on Zillow or Redfin and you're saying to yourselves, wait a minute, why would I buy a home today if I know that in a year I'm going to have more selection and lower prices? It's better for me to wait. And buyers are now saying this to themselves across the housing market, which is causing demand to continue to plummet, which is no doubt going to cause home prices to go down by a lot more, particularly in a market like Sacramento, our number 8 city with the most unsold inventory piling up. The numbers here are shocking, everyone. Year over year, inventory has grown by 72% in Sacramento. And in fact, it's also 40% higher than it was when the pandemic started 2 years ago, which is a sign that many of the home buyers who flocked into Sacramento during the pandemic, they are no longer coming in, which means that the sky-high home prices in Sacramento are now going to need to be supported by the local home buyer who quite simply can't afford it. Because we can see the typical home value in Sacramento is $626,000, while the local worker earns $56,000, meaning that the typical home price is more than 11 times what the average worker makes in a year. This is a sign that Sacramento is in a big bubble. As we can see, the last time this price to earnings ratio was this high was in 2007, right before home prices in Sacramento crashed by 50%. Could these home prices crash by 50% again in Sacramento and the other cities on this list? Well, I'm going to tell you by the end of the video some of my projections for how much home prices are going to go down in some of these markets. And let me give you a hint, it's not going to be pretty. Especially in a housing market like Seattle, our number 7 market with the biggest deluge of for sale signs, inventory is up by over 100%. Seattle's a market where higher mortgage rates is really pulling it down. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is around 5.2% right now, roughly double what it was during the middle of the pandemic, which means that a home buyer in Seattle today is going to need to fork up over $50,000 a year in ongoing mortgage payments and property tax costs to be able to afford a home. I mean, think about that, everyone. There's not many people out there who can afford $56,000 a year to go towards their home ownership costs. And this is causing, quite simply, many people to leave Seattle or a market like Portland or a market like San Francisco. We're seeing a huge wave of outward migration from the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest in America that's leaving leaving these housing markets barren. There's just an utter lack of buyers. This could be why home sales in Seattle are down an astounding 37% year over year. Now, moving on over to the complete other side of the country, we can see a market like Tampa, Florida is in a very similar situation to Seattle. And undoubtedly, Tampa's big headwind right now is the flight of investors from the market. Investors have become a very big part of Tampa's housing market. And now that these investors are starting to exit the market, it's leaving a gaping hole in housing demand that's caused inventory to go up an astounding 92% year over year across the Tampa metro. Now, at this point in the video, I think some of you might be asking yourself a question, and it's this. You say, okay, Nick, I see the skyrocketing inventory, the price cuts, but when should I buy, right? Like, what's going to be the right point in time to jump into this market and to take advantage of all the deals that are coming about? And I think for the cities on this list, everyone, you got to understand that you are going to see some mega deals in these cities over the next year to 18 months. I mean, it's going to be crazy how much prices are going down in these areas. But the thing to understand, and the thing that I need to warn you all about, is these cities are likely entering a structural, long-term housing crash where we're going to see prices go down not just for a year, but several years. So you got to think about that if you're buying in these locations right now. Do you want to take the risk of buying today at a nice price cut, but then seeing the value of your home go down by another 10 to 15%? Well, the answer to that question is going to depend on just how much values are going to go down. And into our number 5 market that has the biggest pileup of inventory, I think home prices could be going down by 40% from peak to trough. This is a market where inventory is just exploding at a record level. I don't think anyone outside of myself expected this housing market to crash so much. Where am I talking about? That would be Austin, Texas. This is a market that's in absolute free fall right now. I mean, just take a look at this graph, everyone. In the span of just 5 months, the number of homes for sale in Austin has increased from 1,460 in February to nearly 8,000 in July, according to Realtor.com. That's now above its pre-pandemic levels in late 2019. And then the next couple months, Austin's going to set a record for how many unsold homes are sitting on the market. And this huge surge in inventory is already leading to big price declines in Austin, with some estimates saying that values have already gone down by 10%. And if we take a look at this map showing the metro areas in America with the biggest surge in inventory, we can see Austin. But if actually we look into the southeast, we can see a pocket here of a big surge in inventory occurring in North Carolina, especially in Raleigh. Inventory in Raleigh, get this, is up by 138% year over year. A lot of those people moving to Raleigh during the pandemic, well, now they're not moving there as much anymore. And especially we're seeing a big decline in investor demand. We saw a lot of people who worked in tech who bought second and third homes or maybe investment homes in Raleigh over the last 2 years because they saw Apple and Google opening up offices there. Well, their demand is now falling off the table, just as sellers in Raleigh are getting desperate and flooding the market with listings. Now, before getting into the top 3 cities on this list, you guys are not going to believe your eyes when you see how many homes are piling up on the market and how desperate sellers are getting in these 3 cities. We need to talk about a big point that's going to cause inventory to spike even further into the future, and that is foreclosures. That's right, everyone. Foreclosures are still near a record low in the summer of 2022. So we have this spiking inventory without foreclosures occurring, which means that in the back half of 2022 and going into early 2023, as we see this foreclosure backlog erupt with over 700,000 seriously delinquent borrowers, with the recession pushing more borrowers into default, we're going to see these inventory numbers spike to a level you can't believe. And I'm going to talk about this foreclosure wave in more detail in my next video. I'm going to have a lot of really good data on how and where you'll be able to pick up a foreclosure over the next couple of years. Make sure you're a subscriber and turn on those subscribe notifications so you don't miss that video. Now, our number 3 housing market, well, it doesn't need foreclosures to have an inventory spike because the amount of homes on the market is up by more than 150% year over year. The buyers in this city have completely gone away. The sellers are getting desperate. Where am I talking about? That would be Colorado Springs, where we can see the active listing count, according to Realtor.com, has increased from 1,100 last year to over 2,800 this year. And if we look at the general area here in Colorado, whether it be Pueblo, Denver, or Greeley, we could see inventory is up all across the state. Colorado is one of the top housing crash states right now. Home prices are going down, and they're going down fast. Why is Colorado and Colorado Springs crashing so much? Well, put simply, home values just got way too high over the last several years. The locals cannot afford it anymore. With the home price to earnings ratio surging all the way up to 10x, one of the highest in America. You can see actually the Colorado Springs, it wasn't in a bubble back in 2007. The PE ratio was around 5x. It was still pretty affordable, didn't have a big crash. Well, today there is going to be a big crash in Colorado Springs. I expect prices to go down by 30%. Now, our number 2 housing market could see prices go down by even more than that. This is a housing market that in the last crash saw a 55% decline in prices, and right now sellers are rushing to the door in this city, our number 2 housing market. I would not want to be a buyer there right now, but maybe in 2 years I would want to be a buyer in Phoenix, Arizona. Inventory, get this, is up by 160% year over year in Phoenix, with over 60% of the listings on the market now having a price cut. I would not touch the Phoenix housing market with a 10-foot pole for at least 2 years, because we are going to see an absolute bloodbath, especially as Wall Street investors and Wall Street landlords sell out of this market. It's going to be crazy. I'm thinking 30%, maybe 35% declines in values. Now, before getting into our number 1 market that's an absolute free fall where the for sale signs are piling up, I want to do some honorable mentions on this list. What are the cities that came close to making the top 10 but just missed the cut? Well, one would be Dallas, Texas, where inventory is up by 81% year over year, especially in North Dallas. We're just seeing tons and tons of homes flood the market for sale. Another market would be Salt Lake City, as well as nearby metros like Ogden and Provo. Inventory is up by over 100% in these markets, and we're seeing huge price cuts already all across Utah. And then let's not forget Southwest Florida. Markets like Northport, Cape Coral, and Naples. Inventory is going up at unprecedented levels across Southwest Florida. These are markets that are also in a crash. And if you guys want to look this data up for yourself, you can. I'm going to have a link in the description to the Realtor.com inventory database. You can download these files at the metro, county, and state levels and take a look at how your housing market is progressing in this crash. Folks, are you ready for our number 1 housing market where the inventory just keeps spiraling out of control, where the housing crash just keeps getting worse by the day? I think some of you might already intuitively know what this housing market is if you've watched my videos. I've been calling a housing crash on this city for over a year. If you go back to August 2021, one of the first videos I did that went viral identified this city as the first city that is going to crash, and that prediction is playing out. Because what we're seeing in Boise, Idaho's housing market is absolutely shocking. Inventory in Boise is up 150% year over year. There were 3,700 homes actively on the market in July in Boise, and you can see that that is now the highest inventory measurement of all time in Realtor.com's data set going back to 2016. If you want even more data, hit the join button below and become a channel member. Each month, I send my channel members interactive graphs, many of which you saw in this video. They've been looking at this inventory data for already the last couple days. If you want access to that hands-on data, hit the join button below. The cost is $5 a month.